DeAndre Swift talks about earning his role next year on the Chicago Bears, which I'm sure a lot of Bears fans are going to appreciate hearing. We're also going to talk about Colston Loveland and his injury update, as well as some Bears players that are going under the radar leading into training camp. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content today, y'all. And DeAndre Swift has talked about his new opportunity with the Chicago Bears and prepared to earn the opportunity in this new look offense, which I think is a really important thing. As much as DeAndre Swift has garnered some criticism, rightfully so, from Bears fans, DeAndre Swift, to me, wasn't nearly as bad as what some Bears fans try to make him out to be. I think he was fairly, productive considering how bad the offense was overall, how bad the offensive line was. But, that's just my opinion. But he did say this: whenever the opportunity presents itself, you just have to make the most of it. Whatever I have to do. If I'm blocking for DJ Moore to get the ball, for Cole Kmet to get the ball, we'll have team success. Whatever the play call is, just execute and do your job. The ball will find you. And what I think that does signify is the trust in Ben Johnson. What's the thing I've been saying so often about Ben Johnson is that his job and the thing that he loves doing is finding a way to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers. That's really it when it comes down to it. And while that seems like an oversimplification of it, because it really is, there's a lot more that goes into that than just finding a way. You got to create those opportunities. Hearing somebody like DeAndre Swift that's ready to just come in and do whatever it takes. Now, these are just words right now. It's not like DeAndre Swift's going to come in and say, hey, listen, no, I'm not doing none of that. Just give me the ball, let me run, let me do my thing. He's not going to say that, right? Not very many players are going to say that, and DeAndre Swift definitely is not a player that has earned the right to be able to say something like that, right? So that's a part that plays into this as well. But I like to look at this and see that DeAndre Swift, as much as all the Bears players, and one thing that I think is really going to help this team take it to the next level if they do, it just comes down to everybody sacrificing for the greater of the whole, right? It's like DeAndre Swift said there, do your job. The rest is going to take care of itself. If you're doing the job that you're supposed to do, you do have a head coach in there now in Ben Johnson that's going to create opportunities for you. And he is somebody that, what we talked about in yesterday's episode, his attention to detail, as Cole Kmet laid it out, is the thing that really separates him from where the coaches that the Bears have had in the past. And so that's what you really want to see here. And so hearing that DeAndre Swift is ready to put in the work to do whatever it takes to really earn that new role and that new opportunity in this Bears team in this offense overall, that's great. No matter what the future is with DeAndre Swift. I think most people know, and he's going to be projected that the Bears go after a running back in this upcoming draft, and that's the thing that makes the most sense. But regardless of all of that, even if DeAndre Swift goes on to another place, or the Bears bring in a new back, and now he's sharing that backfield with DeAndre Swift, DeAndre doing his job here, finding a way to be effective here in Chicago next season, because this is the jersey that he's going to be wearing. That's what's going to be best for his future. That's going to be what's best for his presence, and that's what's going to keep him around. And so, Swift, as long as everybody else, needs to embrace that role, embrace the fact of, let me just do what's asked me, what this coaching staff is asking me to do, and then I have to trust that coaching staff is going to reward me in that by putting me in situations to where I can be the most effective, but I have to help other guys be effective as well. That's how you get to a team that can win. That's how you get to a team that can compete, especially in NFC North. Everybody has to sacrifice for themselves. And as much as we're talking about the weapons that the Bears have on this team, and we do have a lot of weapons offensively, make no mistake about it, everybody's going to have to sacrifice for each other if they're going to want to get to the ultimate goal, and that's winning and that's being a winning football team. It can't be this me thing, right? And not to say that I've heard or I think that that's the case. It seems like we have a really good group of guys, and we have a really good group of coaches, and we're starting to get to that place of building that culture that you want. You got to win. You got to do those type of things. You got to sacrifice to win, though. And so hopefully Swift and his words here, it makes a lot of it's things that we actually see. Swift is not the best blocker, right? So hearing him say, hey, if I got to block for this guy, I will do it, Good. Now, can you run through A gap and B gap? Can you do that a little bit more for me, my boy? Like those type of things that you want to see from Swift. But overall, I think Swift under Ben Johnson is going to see a really nice uptick from what he did last year, as I think the whole entire offense is going to, just because we're going to have so much better play calling, so much better execution, especially on that offensive line. It's going to be hard not to improve if you're the Chicago Bears, right? At least let me knock on wood when I say that, and hopefully I don't jinx anything. But one of those weapons that we talked about that the Bears are going to have for next year is tight end Colston Loveland, who the Chicago Bears drafted 10th overall in this draft, and he has not been healthy. He's not been a player that's been able to get out there on the football field for OTAs and things like that. And we got a little bit of an injury update in regards to Colston Loveland, in which he said this: "It's been good. There haven't been really any live bullets flying yet. We'll really know in camp once I get out there doing a lot more stuff." So it seems like via that Colston Loveland is going to be ready by training camp, which falls in line with what Ben Johnson has said before about him and Luther Burton, that their full expectation is that they're going to be healthy and ready to go by training camp here just in a couple of weeks at the end of July. And as much time as Colston Loveland and Luther Burton have missed, and how important they can be in their roles here with the Chicago Bears offense, it's important to get those guys out there rolling, ready to go, and ready to lock in because they have missed a lot of time. They've missed some opportunities to build that chemistry with their teammates. Even though they've been there doing off-the-field things, you want to be on the field. You want to be building that chemistry there, and you can't really replace that too much, right? Like you can learn the playbook, which I'm sure Colston Loveland, the coaching staff, has had him ready to go and learning that playbook as best as they can. But you have to be out there with your players to build really that chemistry. And like I said, this falls right in with what Ben Johnson has said in regards to Colston Loveland being ready by training camp. And it seems like that plan is on pace. So Loveland, and I know a lot of Bears fans have made it about whether he's going to replace Cole Kmet or not. But Colston Loveland plays a really important role in what Ben Johnson's offensive philosophies are. Wanting to use that 12 personnel set, wanting to use that for this team is hugely important to how Ben Johnson is going to get Caleb Williams in easier spots, get Caleb Williams in places where he can be more effective, and you can simplify the game for Caleb. That's an important part of what the Bears are trying to establish here. And so having that 12 personnel set, that really is a safety blanket in a lot of ways for Caleb Williams and anybody else in this team when you need yards, when you need to get in the red zone. That's where Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet can be really big threats, is in the red zone. I think Luther Burton's going to be a really big red zone threat. You got to get guys out there on the football field. And so hearing that Colston Loveland is on that pace to get back ready by training camp, I think that's the best thing that you want for this team. You want everybody to be healthy, rearing and ready to go and locked in. If you get everybody locked in, you get over those humps that you can go through as a team and stuff like that. That's where you start building that chemistry. And so that's really what you want to see. So hearing that Colston Loveland is really good. Now, the question I have here, first of all, are second-round picks. We still need to wait on those guys to actually sign their contracts, which may not happen till the start of training camp. I know it's going to be a lot. My boy Pat, the designer, brings it up every time we talk. It's like, hey, did the second-round pick sign yet? Like anytime we get an alert or something like that. But that may not happen to the start of training camp when everybody's already there. We've kind of seen things like that happen with the Chicago Bears before with contract extensions. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we don't hear that then. But that's really the next order of business. Of course, getting everybody healthy by training camp, having everybody locked in and ready to go at training camp. And then at that point, you want to get your contracts locked in because you don't want that hanging over the head of your team. You want to get that over and done with so you can focus on the things that matter the most, and that's playing football games. That's what you want to be able to do, right? So hopefully the Bears are able to get into that spot, get into that place, and Colston's important. Luther Burton's important in that. Braxton Jones is another guy that you want healthy just so you can eliminate any questions on what's going to be that offensive line. You don't want any kind of late things there. Get Braxton Jones fully healthy and ready to go there. So we still got some things as far as balance that we need to figure out on the offensive side of the ball. But I think that's by design, right? That's what you want to be at this point in the offseason. You want to have still some questions there that are left to be answered once the pads are on and you're in full contact. And so the pecking order of some things, while Ben Johnson said the depth chart is completely open, I kind of think we kind of know who and what's going to be where in most scenarios. But that first 2 weeks of training camp, and maybe even down to the first preseason game, that's going to be a really big and important part and kind of laying the groundwork on exactly what the rotation is going to look like for this team. And we'll see how that works out. Hopefully, Colston is and Luther and Braxton and everybody's just ready to go. And we can eliminate all those questions. So if Ozzy Trapillo wins that starting left tackle position, the Braxton Jones truthers can realize that he won it even while Braxton was healthy. Because if not, those Braxton Jones truthers are always going to be out there saying Braxton should take that position. That's just me joking to the Braxton Jones crowd. But so that's what it is. Colston Loveland seems like he's going to be healthy, ready to go by training camp. I think that's the best case scenario for the Chicago Bears there, in my personal opinion. You guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Next up, we're going to be talking about under-the-radar players for the Chicago Bears heading into training camp. We're getting to that list next. So number one on the list is Kieran Amagu, the offensive tackle / guard. And the reason why I even have him above the list on Ozzy Trapillo and even Braxton Jones is that we know that they're basically competing for the starting left tackle position. But a Kieran Amagu that shows up to training camp not only healthy, but showing growth from last season is going to provide the Bears so much more depth on that offensive line. And that's one of the things I have the biggest questions for with the Chicago Bears in training camp is I feel very confident in the starting offensive line, the depth. Right, that's where I have a big question at when it comes down to this team. So if guys like Kieran Amagu, Luke Newman, Ryan Bates, name them, Theo Benedict, right? If these guys show up and provide really good, consistent depth, that's going to take this offensive line even further. So number one on the list is definitely going to be Kieran Amagu. I know that he was playing some starter level reps too with the starting lineup, and reportedly he looked pretty good with those guys. So that's really promising when it comes down to that. But outside of Braxton and Ozzy, whoever wins that starting position, you're going to need more depth there. And Kieran Amagu, who can play guard or tackle, is a guy that I'm really looking at in training camp to see how he's grown from last year and if he's more ready, right? A lot of times last year when Kieran Amagu got in games, he looked like a deer in the headlights. He just wasn't prepared, but we knew we were drafting a raw prospect just because Nate Davis was so bad, injuries on that offensive line that put him in a position where we had to rely on him. But now coming into year two, you should be able to rely on him more, especially if he's going to be making a name for himself in this rotation on that offensive line. So Kieran Amagu is the first guy that I wanted to bring up there. Next up, Kyle Mangan. This is a guy that you're going to hear in just about any type of training camp or preseason listing here for the Chicago Bears. And that's not to say that DeAndre Swift and Roschon aren't locked into their spots. They are. But Kyle Mangan, guy who kind of brings the best of both worlds, right? Even though he doesn't have the size of a Roschon Johnson, for example, he's still a really good pass blocker, can run behind between the gaps there, can bounce it around on the outside, solid enough in pass protection as well. He brings a lot of what you want there. And of course, the Bears are hoping that they got a diamond in the rough in round 7 with Kyle Mangan. We know that they did try to, trade up and get Travion Henderson. That didn't end up working out, but hey, they got Kyle Mangan in here. And this is a guy who has speed, a mix of strength, and he breaks tackles, right? That's something that DeAndre Swift does not do a whole lot of consistently or at all. If you ask some people, is break tackles. I think that the balance that he brings there, if he comes in there in his reps and really shows out, especially in preseason where he's going to get a lot of opportunity, I think that's the thing that's going to happen to it. And he doesn't turn the ball over. 0 career fumbles with 670 attempts. That's crazy when you look at it. So, hopefully he's able to bring that a little bit to the Chicago Bears because we're going to need that firepower where and if we can get it. Next up, another player to talk about as far as watch out in training camp is Tyson Bagent. When we talked about the players that were on the roster bubble, C-Dub brought up Tyson Bagent and talked about Bagent and Reed and just, that quarterback role, because we're probably not going to go into the season with 4 quarterbacks. Now, I do think one is going to end up on the practice squad. That's basically how we've done. Seems like Case Keenum is kind of locked in regards to that second, that QB2, it seems like. Bagent could definitely still make a case for himself when it comes down to that. And if it happens, it's going to have to happen in training camp for him. So, we'll see what happens. But we'll see how if the Bears are carrying 2 or 3 quarterbacks. We've seen them carry 2 before. So we'll see what that battle ends up looking like. But Tyson Bagent is always going to be an interesting name there for the Chicago Bears as well. Next up, Devin Duvernay. Now, the reason why I have Devin Duvernay here, and I could have swapped this with Tyler Scott because it's for a lot of the same reasons. When you look at the Bears wide receiver core, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burton, Olamide Zaccheaus, those 4 guys are going to be in that rotation. And with whatever happens with Luther Burton with injuries and the contract situation, there could be a way where Olamide actually passes him up. Devin Duvernay, while a whiz in special teams, if he's able to bring enough to be that fifth wide receiver, and they feel confident in him being that fifth wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, that could push Tyler Scott out there. Now, if Tyler Scott shows enough to where they feel confident in him being the fifth wide receiver, I think Devin Duvernay stays on the team because of his nature of him playing in special teams. Keep in mind, this is an all-pro and pro bowler for kick returning, right? So you have that level of it, and Richard Hightower is going to love him. But if he can get turned into a weapon on that offensive side of the ball, that's what's going to put more pressure on a player like Tyler Scott to really show up. So Devin Duvernay, Tyler Scott, they're definitely ones to look out for as well when it comes down to it. And then the last one, that's kind of a position battle, but not really. You have Joel Wilson at tight end. We also have Durham Smythe, who we brought in here as well as tight end before we ended up signing Colston Loveland. So now you have Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Joel Wilson, Durham Smythe. Somebody's not going to make the roster, right? I don't see you carrying that many tight ends when it comes down to it. And so, Joel Wilson is probably not going to make the 53-man roster. He's probably going to be converted over to the practice squad if nobody else picks him up, which is perfectly fine, I think, when that comes down to it. But to see how he performs in training camp, to see how we hear about him, especially with the fact that, Ben Johnson isn't against mixing things up and taking looks at players in different areas. So I think that's one thing when it comes down to it. But we shall see. So those are the guys to really kind of look out in training camp. There are, of course, other players. Austin Booker is one as well. Like, I really can't wait to see what Austin Booker brings here in year 2. How much of him being raw has he worked out from year 1 to year 2, and he's able to be a more consistent kind of weapon for the Chicago Bears on that defensive line, because we're going to need it, right? As much as we bring Dayo Odeyingbo out, and I have some trust in Dayo, I think he's going to be a really, really good player on that opposite side of Montez Sweat. You still need depth, much like I talked about with the offensive line. You need depth if you want to be consistent. If you have the best starters in the world, but when they have to inevitably take a seat, the people backing them up are trash. You can only do so much, because not everybody's going to play every snap. That's just not going to happen, especially in the trenches. So you need that really good depth in the trenches. So Austin Booker and Daniel Hardy and how much they have grown from last year is going to be really important in that as well. And I guess another guy kind of out the outskirts is Ian Willer. Like, let's not forget about Ian Willer and how much of a preseason darling he was for the Chicago Bears team before he went down with the torn ACL. But Ian Willer's kind of another one. But let me know some of the names you guys are excited to see and look out for in training camp for the Chicago Bears next year. Let me know that down below. With that said, we do have comments from a college coach that talks about why Luther Burton probably fell down in the draft for the Chicago Bears. And so this is one when Sean Hammond of the Chicago Tribune, he did a deep dive in regards to Burton in training camp and things like that. He talked to Jacob Pillar, who was the Missouri wide receiver coach the same time that Burton was there, and he said this. Pillar attributed Burton's drop in production in 2024 to several things. Opponents made a concerted effort to stop him after his 1,200-yard season. Also, quarterback Brady Cook was dealing with a wrist injury that affected his throwing motion throughout the second half of the season. The one thing that I was impressed with Burton, he never let it get to him. He never got frustrated to the point where it was ever a detriment. Most receivers either always want the ball or otherwise they're playing the wrong position. He was a great teammate, never once got frustrated to the point that I ever saw it. So a couple of things there, right? It shows that Luther Burton is about the team. And what did we just talk about at the start of the show? You need people who are going to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. And it seems like Luther Burton, at least according to this coach, has that in him, which is really good, right? It also shows somebody who doesn't get too far down. We've had a lot of players that this new coaching staff has had to talk to about their body language. It seems like that's not going to be a problem with Luther Burton either, right? And again, college is a little bit different from NFL once players start making big money in the big endorsements. So I know they have NIL and stuff like that. So it's just really good things. It seems like, and that's one thing that Poles does try to do. He's not always successful, but he tries to bring in guys with all good personalities, good mindsets, good makeup, right? Because that's, again, how you build a culture. And it seems like he's done the same thing with Luther Burton. Burton's going to come in here into a spot where, as long as he's healthy, as long as he learns the playbook, he builds that chemistry with Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson is going to love using him in that slot, right? That's when you look at Ben Johnson's system and the teams that he's coached, that slot receiver gets some of the biggest stats on the team. So Burton's coming into a situation where he is tailor-made for exactly what the Chicago Bears need him to do, with room to do more as well as Ben Johnson gets creative in how he uses players. And all those things are going to pay off for this Bears team. So I love hearing this. I love hearing that Luther Burton is a guy that didn't let the situation get down to him, because especially going your year before going into the NFL draft, not everybody would have handled that with as much, poise as what Luther Burton reportedly handled that with down in Missouri. So that's good to hear that. And so, Burton and Colston Loveland, two guys that I know I talked about at the beginning of the show. I guess we're going to bookend it with them again. These are two guys that I think really are going to play a big, important role in this offense, even as rookies, right? They have a chance to be impactful as rookies under this team and under this coaching staff. And let's hope that they're able to execute. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.